Zakhiyya Bhaidani, or Kia as we'll call her, is a social worker by profession and a mother of two. Having been diagnosed with postpartum anxiety after the birth of her daughter and then again after the birth of her son, she's passionate about helping others work through their mental health. She's a strong advocate for postpartum body positivity and confidence and loves to help other moms survive and thrive in motherhood. She is passionate about implementing fun into life every single day and dreams of being a motivational speaker one day, which I think she will be amazing at. Thank you so much, Kia, for joining us.
Yay! Oh my gosh, Kia, I'm so excited to talk about this. I'm excited and a little nervous because it's so important. Like what we're talking about is so important, right?
And it's so, I guess it's not talked about enough, it's just, we hear about it, we read stories about it, but it's not talked about enough in the real sense.
Totally. Like people's actual lived experiences of it. A lot of postpartum depression. So we're talking today about postpartum mental health, but postpartum depression has gotten quite a bit of press and people kind of know about it. But there's so much more than just postpartum depression that affects people. And I know from your story, I know that it's okay to talk about your personal story.
Yeah.
So I know you went through a bit of postpartum anxiety, right? And for me, I went through something called premenstrual dysphoric disorder, which I'm going to talk about. It's called Pmdd, and I'm going to talk about it today because for a lot of women, it actually surfaces after they have kids, or it becomes so bad after they have kids that they finally get it checked out, which is what happened to me. So do you want to just tell me a little bit about yourself, your background, and your story?
Yeah. So, hi. I'm a social worker by background, but more importantly, I'm a mom of two. And after the birth of my daughter, who's my oldest, she's 4.5, I got diagnosed with postpartum anxiety. Now, I'd never heard of postpartum anxiety before then. I had heard of postpartum depression, right? They screen for it. And it's interesting because they'll ask you a question of, how's your connection with the baby and how are you feeling? And I was like, I feel fine. Like my connection with the baby is fine. In fact, sometimes I feel like it's maybe too much. And so my OB was fantastic in the sense that he then screened for postpartum anxiety.
Mm-hmm.
Things like, tell me a little bit about the thoughts that are going on in your head. I'm like, well, I can't put my baby down, because I'm afraid that my baby's going to die if my baby's not with me, or I can't stop staring at my child when they're sleeping. So then I wasn't sleeping because I'm afraid that something's going to happen. And so it was through that kind of work that they started to say, oh, okay, well, it looks like you're dealing with some anxiety. Now, I had never really dealt with anxiety before.
Mm-hmm.
And I'd been in the mental health world since I graduated from school. So it was very strange to hear that there was something called postpartum anxiety and that it could just come about. So that was really interesting. And it took a lot of willpower and a lot of refocusing my brain to say, it's okay for me to set my baby down. It's okay to not check on her every 2 seconds. Even now, she's 4.5. And if she goes for a sleepover or even if she's at school, my first thought is she's going to die. Something's going to happen. And I have to take a step back and be like, okay, breathe. Rationally speaking, she's fine. She's safe. But I mean, the fact of the matter is she's 4.5 and I still have a baby monitor in her room.
Yeah.
And with my son, the postpartum anxiety also started while I was pregnant with him. I just kept shaking my stomach going, okay, are you going to move? Are you going to move? Are you okay? Because that fear of him not being there, me losing him was so prominent because it was carried over from when I was pregnant or when I had my daughter.
Yeah.
So it never really goes away. And that's the part that's not talked about, is that it doesn't go away.
It doesn't go away. You find ways to manage it.
Yeah.
You understand what it is a little bit more, but it doesn't ever go away.
It transpires to other parts of your life too. Right? Whereas once I didn't have anxiety, now not only do I have anxiety pertaining to my children and if they're not with me, but for example, if I phone my husband and he doesn't answer, my first thought is, oh my gosh, he's dead. Something happened. And I have to stop and be like, hey, let's think about this rationally. Take a step back, what's going on, right?
Yeah. And that initial thought, it's like a punch in the gut, right? It's like, oh my gosh, like, and your whole body feels it. You go into, you have this like freeze mode, right? Is that what happens to you? Like a freeze mode?
Yeah,
Oh,
like I get nauseated and then I have to say, okay, calm down. Let's think
yeah.
about this rationally. Just gone to the grocery store, or, they're just sleeping. It's okay. But I still, I neurotically check the baby monitor every night. I haven't slept through the night since my daughter was born.
Yeah.
Even though both kids, knock on wood, sleep through the night, I can't. I have to just make sure they're breathing, they're okay. And It's funny because even when the baby monitor is on my husband's side of the bed, I'll wake him up in the middle of the night and say, can you check on them? Are they breathing? Right? They're fine, but no, you need to check. I can't sleep until you check.
Yeah. It takes over your entire life, right? It can easily take over your entire life. So how did you, going from that, because that's really hard. Like you just want to be there for your kids. You just want to be the best mom possible. And then when you want to kind of let them go and let them, have some space for yourself, like everyone says, oh, self-care, take care of yourself, do things for yourself. And you're like, I'm literally thinking about my kid nonstop. Like it doesn't feel like a break when they're not with me. I'm still obsessively worrying about them. So how did you go from, where you were at before to kind of telling yourself, okay, it's going to be okay. Let's think about this rationally. They're probably fine. What's the process in the moment?
I think for me, it took a lot of journaling, which was interesting. And then rereading that journal entries and going, wow, I've come a long ways, and I don't really know the exact moment that it happened. I think it was just something in my brain clicked that I had to let go a little bit.
Yeah.
Because if I didn't, I would go crazy. I wouldn't be the optimal parent that I need to be for my kids. And so even though now I still have those fears, I'm able to say, okay, rationally speaking, I can see the blanket moving. I don't need to go check on them in the room. They're okay. Oh, I can hear them. Or, oh, they fidgeted 5 minutes ago. They're fine.
Yeah.
Let's take a breath. Let's focus on something else, right? Let's go for a bath, or let's do this. The truth of the matter is I'm always thinking about my kids, and I'm always thinking about what they're doing. Are they okay? But it's gotten to the point now where it's less of an invasive thought of, are they, what if something's wrong with them, to I have to trust that they're in good hands, and I have to just trust that they're gonna be okay, right? I've taught them everything I can within their age group, so I have to step back a little, right? And some people find it absolutely bonkers that I've already taught my 4-year-old about stranger danger, and she knows my phone number, and she knows about body safety, and she knows about what do you do if you're lost, and we've had extensive talks of this. In fact, in all of her jacket pockets, I've even put a little card with my name and my husband's name and our phone numbers, just in case, right? And some people think it's over prepared, but for me, that's what eases my anxiety, that if God forbid anything happens, she knows the tools to kind of be okay.
Yeah. And I think, so there's two parts of that, right? One of them is being prepared. You want to make sure that she's prepared and that you're prepared, right? So you do everything that you can to make sure that she's okay. If anything were to happen, at least you know that you've done everything you possibly can. But then you're also telling yourself it's going to be okay. Nothing's going to happen. She's going to be fine. So the other part of that is trust, right? And that is so huge. Like, I feel like trust, I had to relearn how to trust once I had a kid, because I thought it was something different. I thought it was like, oh, I just trust that life is going to work out for me. And now it's like, I have to trust that this little being that is my responsibility is going to be fine. Like, I have to trust that there's something and someone kind of looking after her when I'm not there, because I can't protect her. I mean, there's been times she's fallen off the couch when I've been right there, when she was like a baby, right? Like, things happen. It just happens, right?
And I think the important part is that mom guilt, right? Really quieting that mom guilt voice, because we all have it, right? It's there.
Yeah.
But you let your kid go for a sleepover to the grandparents' house, and not only are you dealing with the anxiety of what if they choke on something.
Oh, that's a hard one.
Right? That's a hard one.
It's me.
But you also have to say, it's okay to leave them. It's okay to not be worried about them sometimes. And I think part of the anxiety came from mom guilt, because I thought to myself, well, if I'm not worried about them, does that mean I'm not a good mom? Am I doing something wrong? Right? And so the mom guilt kind of fed the anxiety a little bit, and the anxiety was feeding the mom guilt. So it was really bad, Um, and you kind of have to quiet both voices, which is a struggle. And I often say, lean on supports when you have them. And sometimes, talking in the mirror was my best friend at that point. I would talk in the mirror and be like, hey, listen, rationally speak. Let's be totally rational. Let's think about it this way. You need a break from your kids because you're gonna go crazy if you don't. Also, your parents raised you and you're fine, so it's gonna be okay. Let's be rational, right? But I think every parent kind of has those fears of when my kid's not with me, something's going to happen because we're the protectors, right? Yeah.
And I don't know, like, does every mom feel that way? I'm not sure, because I've heard from, like, because I have the same thing you have, where it's like a little bit of postpartum, it's anxiety, but also I think a bit of OCD. Like, I get the intrusive thoughts that I just, like, they terrify me, and it'll just be these fears, like these fears of, it'll be like a thought of my daughter getting hurt somehow. And so what I've done, because I don't know how to quiet those, like I don't know how to get rid of them, what I do is I actually shift them. So if I'm scared about her, like she loves to go on the escalator, and if I'm not around, I'm scared that she's gonna, like, try to go on the escalator on her own. And I know that my parents will be right there and she'll be fine. She's not going to do that. But I get these images. And so what I do is I kind of, like, it'll start in my head, and then I make it into like a funny thing, or like a thing where she's laughing. So she's kind of like bouncing down the escalator and laughing. And then she's like, let me do that again. So I change it so that, she's happy and she's safe in my images.
And I think it's okay to be prepared, right? And it's okay to be a little neurotic in that sense too. I mean, if it's going to appease your anxiety and therefore make you a better, I guess, feel better internally, which makes you a better parent,
Yeah.
it's okay to do so. I mean, before we go into any public place, I take a picture of both my kids and what they're wearing. Because I know, God forbid, something happens, my brain is not going to be like, oh my God, what was she wearing? I don't know. I don't remember. But I can be like, this was her this morning, right? This is us before we left the house.
Yeah.
And it's a preparedness method, right? And you're right, even telling the funny story in your head, it's a way for the brain to say, it's okay, right? We might not feel it, but we have to tell ourselves that.
Yeah, for sure. For sure. Yeah. And I fully, like, after I had those particular thoughts, because she was going to the mall, I called my mom and I'm like, by the way, she really likes the escalator. She's like, I know, Jena, it's fine. I've taken care of kids before. I was like, yeah, that's right.
Right. Even with our parents, we forget. We're like, wait, yes, they have raised us. And even though it's a different time, at the end of the day, most of the stuff we're worried about is a little bit of common sense too, right? I mean, don't give your kids things they can choke on, or just watch for them, right?
Exactly.
And so we have to loosen the rope a little bit in order for them to grow. Because if we're anxious and they can see that, they're going to be anxious about everything. And my daughter is. She's very anxious. And I know a lot of that had to do with me, because sometimes I talk to her about, okay, we're going here. You don't need to be scared. It'll be fine. We're going here. But already I'd put that in her head. You don't need to be scared. Wait, is there something to be scared of?
Right.
So we get to the place and she's scared all of a sudden. I'm like, what are you scared about? There's nothing to be scared about. But I had already said to her, there's no need to be scared, right?
Yes.
So sometimes it comes in our own conversations and our own anxieties that we have to really keep in check.
And they do, and especially little girls, because girls have more mirror neurons than boys. So they really pick up on what mom is feeling and how she's presenting herself. Even if you're just feeling anxious inside and you're putting on a nice face, they kind of feel what you're feeling. So, and when I heard that, I was like, oh, great, like more stuff to feel guilty about. Like, this just means I'm supposed to be some perfect person. Otherwise, I'm going to mess my daughter up and she's going to grow up to be just like me. Like, I don't want that.
I think she'd be fabulous if she was like that.
Well, like, you want her to have the drive, you want her to have certain things, but I know how big of an impact my mental health has had on my life.
Yeah.
And I want her to be protected from that. And, the thing is, like, even the condition I was talking about before, Pmdd, that is a genetic condition. Like, chances are she might very well have it. Right. And I'm not sure about postpartum anxiety or depression.
I'm not sure if it's genetic, but I think one of the biggest assets is that open conversation when she's ready, right? When she's at that age. And I can appreciate that from when I was younger with my own mom, is that she was very open with things she had gone through. And so when my own experiences happened, it was almost like, okay, there's somebody to relate to a little bit, right? There's somebody who gets it, or I was a little bit more prepared. But I think the hard part with us and going through this right now is that our kids are still quite young, and they're picking up not on the reason behind the anxiety, but just the fact that there is something to be anxious about.
Yeah.
They don't know what it is.
Yeah.
But, it's manifesting in ways that is, I mean, I'm sure our kids are both great in terms of emotional regulation and understanding their feelings, but because we have prepared them so much, and because we were, I know me personally was overcautious, my daughter's very reluctant to try new things. And, even going down a slide, she will lose her mind just going down a slide. Just, I don't want to. And she'll scream and cry. And then she'll go down and be like, oh, that was fun.
Yeah.
Right. Going to the eye doctor, she'll scream and cry, but gets in. She's like, oh, that was fine. Right. So, insert mom guilt there, because I'm always like, oh, there's nothing to be afraid of. Which we want to reassure them in that, but she's already seen my panic before.
Yeah. Yeah. So for you personally, like when it comes, because we're kind of talking about happiness and how happiness kind of fits into this whole postpartum journey, it can be so challenging when you're facing mental health issues, right? So for you, you mentioned that your anxiety kind of came up. You had never faced anxiety before you got pregnant or before you had kids. And then it started to transfer even onto your husband, right? Like you were anxious about him as well as the kids. And so how do you find pockets of happiness? How do you kind of move through the day, especially, in the times when it was the worst?
Very early on, I had established that fun was non-negotiable, and even, as we get into adulthood, we lose that sense of fun and that sense of silliness. And I kind of implement a little bit of that in my day. So we implement some fun every single day. It doesn't matter what it is, whether it's a dance party in the house or an indoor snowball fight or, board games. We have to implement something fun, and that's a place for all of us to reset. But for me personally, I think the biggest shift was, and I don't want to say self-care, but it was allowing myself to take those negative thoughts and that anxiety and put it aside for just a few minutes. And so what I would do is I would visualize my negative thoughts and my anxiety like a ball. And I would say, okay, I'm just going to put it on this table for 5 minutes. And I'm going to listen to my favorite music, and I'm going to dance around in my room, and I'm going to maybe just read some of my favorite book, and then I'll pick it up again. So that externalizing method helped me a little bit to just say, it's a thing. It doesn't define who I am, right? It's not, hi, my name is anxiety. It's who I am. And I'm able to set it aside and take moments to relax. And then as I started doing that more and more, I realized that the anxiety doesn't define who I am or my everyday life. And now it pops up in moments. It's not constant state.
Yeah.
So in the times when it's a little bit more relaxed, I'm able to fit in more to fill my cup, so that when the anxiety is at its peak, like when my kids are at a sleepover or, it's a new adventure for them, my cup has already been filled, so I can use some of that resource to just say, okay, it's okay to deplete a little bit.
That's so beautiful. I love that imagery of like taking your thoughts and just holding them in your hand and being like, okay, I can just put this aside.
Yeah.
Like I can just put this aside and have fun.
And when the thought pops up, sometimes it will, right? When I'm doing, like when I'm relaxing or when I'm listening to music and I have a thought like, oh, I didn't check my kids. What if? And I'll say, no. I already set the ball aside. When I pick it up again, I'm allowed to have that thought.
Yeah.
But right now, it's not the time for it. There's no space for it. And so even when it came to my kids going for sleepovers, now I think about sort of my 3 golden questions in my life is, when I have a thought, does it matter? Can I control this? And if I can control it, what's one thing I can do right now to kind of satisfy that thought, right? So my kids are at a sleepover, and I'm worried about them choking, but can I control this? There's nothing I can do right now. They're already at a sleepover. But what's one thing I can do? I can text my parents, hey, how are the kids doing? And then that's it. Once you get your answer, that's done, right? Put it aside for a little while. And you'll find small tools that work for you. But I think the biggest thing for us that are facing anxiety as mothers is to recognize that if we allow our anxiety to hold on to us, it holds on to our kids, and they're going to miss out on so many opportunities for growth and so many opportunities with other people that we need them to have.
That's so true. It's funny, you know, when my daughter's at Montessori school, she was going with me in the beginning, and she would be so super clingy to me, and she wouldn't interact with the other kids. And she was just like, mommy, mommy, mommy. She just wanted to be on me all the time. Then my husband took her. She was a different kid. Like, she was out there exploring, chatting with other kids, singing, doing all the things. And I was like, wow. That was like a moment. I was like, what does this mean? I need to let go, right? Like, I need to be able to let her go. Let her go. Let her do her own thing. I don't want to be a hindrance on her. Like, I want her to love her life. I want her to be more like her dad, you know, more social and more not scared of anything, right? Like, I want her to be gutsy.
Yeah.
And so just recognizing that I can have such a big impact on her was huge for me, because then now he only takes her to Montessori, but I still need to figure out, you know, like, what's the way? How do I, you know, be with her in everyday life and have her still explore and still have fun and still, you know, go do the things that she wants to do.
And it's funny that you say, you know, you want her to be more gutsy and more confident, because that's how I am in my everyday life, right? I'm a little bit more gutsy. I'm confident. I'm out there, but yet I've taught my child to be cautious. Right. And when it comes to my child, I'm cautious, or my children, I'm cautious. Yeah. And so, you know, it's kind of about, like you said, recognizing in yourself, what do you have to let go of, right? And so maybe it's both of you doing something gutsy together, right? I hate slides. Like, I don't like them in general. Mm-hmm. But in order to show bravery, I will go down a slide, and then I'll tell my daughter, hey, why don't you come down too, right? It takes some time. But it's about us pushing our boundaries too, so that they can see that. Because we're their first role model, you know? It's just the way it is. We're always gonna be, right? So
I love that.
You know, motherhood and going through mental health and motherhood together, it's such a transformative journey in how it changes you as a person, for better and worse. But just what you're able to learn about yourself from it.
You have to push yourself so hard, because I think before, you know, like I mentioned, I had been struggling with this kind of mental health condition for like 20 years before I had my daughter. And when I had my daughter, that was the first time that I had like such strong incentive to figure this out, because you want to be the best person possible for them. You just want to be able to show up in the world. And I thought to myself, you know, if she was going through this, what would I want her to do? I would want her to get help. I would want her to face it. Like, I wouldn't want it just to rule her life. I would want her to show up for herself. And so, like, one of the things that I did, which was so helpful, was I actually brought my husband into it, because he could see me struggling, but he didn't understand it. And I didn't understand it either. And so when I brought him into it, and when I was like really honest with him and said, look, this is what I'm going through. Mine wasn't the type of anxiety that you were talking about. In small bits it was, like, I still have those intrusive thoughts and things like that, but mine is more like a really severe kind of depression for like 1 or 2 weeks out of the month, which can really take over your life. Like, that's half your life, right? Yeah. And so I really, like, I brought him into it when I realized that I wasn't able to show up for my daughter. Like, I wasn't able to have fun with her in those moments. And that's so, she doesn't deserve that. She deserves so much better. Right. And I think by showing up for myself, I'm giving her what she needs, because I don't have to be perfect. I just have to be taking steps to make myself better and to create like an environment for her where she can thrive. You know, and I think that's so important to remember, that we don't have to be perfect, because I've done a lot of reading, and especially like when I was pregnant and when I first had my baby, I was reading all the books, and they all tell you that you need to, like, they prescribe things you need to be doing. Like, you need to be doing this and this and this, and make sure that they're sleeping this amount. And there's all these rules and guidelines, and there's all different. Like, if you read one book, it's one thing, you read another book, it's another thing. And it can really be overwhelming, you know? And so for moms out there, like, I just want to kind of put it out there that you do not have to be perfect. You just have to be you. Don't, like, just do what feels good. Parent intuitively. Think about what really feels good to you. Don't just do things because you see other people doing them.
And you're so right. You don't have to be on all the time. You know what I mean? Like, you don't have to be on. And so even when you're going through bouts of a depression or anxiety, it's okay to say, you know what, physically, I can't do anything with my kids today. I'm so mentally drained. Let's pop in a movie and cuddle and watch it.
Yeah.
And you might be disconnected from the movie, and you might even feel disconnected from your child at that point, but they're going to remember that moment of just, mom was with me. She was with me. And we don't have to be on 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. We'd be exhausted. You know, there are times when I lose my mind to my kids, and, you know, I feel bad about it after. You better yourself the next day, right? So the days when my anxiety has mentally drained me and they want me to play, and I'm just like, I can't, I don't know. Like, just go play by yourself. Do I feel bad? Absolutely, I do.
Yeah.
But at night when they go to bed, the last thing they always hear from us is, Mommy and Daddy love you so much. You are so loved. We are so proud of you. And I can't wait to see you in the morning, right? So they're hearing that message, and they're understanding that a bad day doesn't make you a bad parent. And I think we need to realize that a bad day doesn't make us a bad parent. A bad week doesn't make us a bad parent. It's, are you able to show up when you can?
Yeah,
and if you can't show up, what are you doing? What's that little bit you're doing, right? Even if the little bit is just sitting there and watching them play, but your presence is there. Even if that little bit is, you know what, Mama's taking a nap. When I wake up, can you draw me a picture? And then you commenting on the picture. They're going to remember all that.
Yeah.
And you know what you mentioned is so incredibly important, that we don't have to be on all the time. And I think also just modeling for our kids that, you know, there's going to be times when you're sad. Like, it's okay to be sad. It's okay to be sad, because when we try to pretend like we're not sad or pretend like other emotions don't exist, we actually don't give our kids the permission to feel what they're feeling as well. So it's modeling that validation, that internal validation, that, you know, I'm feeling sad right now, and that's okay. And I'm going to move through it. And then I'm going to be happy, right? I'm feeling sad, and then I'm going to be in a different state. Emotions come and go, right? So we're kind of showing them, yeah, emotions come and go. It's okay. Because I think when we stifle it, and, you know, I don't know about you, but the messaging in our society kind of growing up was like, emotions are to be just kind of, they're not good. Like, you need to kind of push them down.
Yeah, they're private. You don't talk about, you don't do emotions. You don't show emotions, right?
Yeah.
You deal with them.
Yeah, I think the point is so excellent in the sense of, we have to show emotions, but not just us, dads as well. Right? And that's so big for especially parents with you know, boys and girls. But that messaging for the boys is that it's okay for dads to have emotions. And that's why with me, I won't hide my tears from my kids. Obviously, you know, there are times when I'm frustrated, and I may. But for the most part, if I'm feeling sad, I might say, you know, Mama's feeling a little sad today. That's why Mama's crying. And that's okay. I'll feel better. What are some ideas you have that I could feel better, right? Get them involved in it. But it's important for dads to do that too. So even if it's just pretend for a little while, but have the fathers, if they're involved, to say, you know what, Daddy's feeling a little sad today. Can you give me some ideas of what I can do to feel better? Just recognize that men can feel sadness as well. And that's okay, right? Yeah. It's a lot of the anger is, you know, people always say, well, men can feel happy or angry, and women feel, you know, the 1,000 tab emotions of happy, excited, angry, sad, blah, 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 right? Mm-hmm. It's okay for both to feel that way, and in fact, we should, right? And then we should model it as a healthy emotion.
What was the last thing you said?
As a healthy emotion. There's no such thing as a bad emotion. There's uncomfortable emotions. There's, you know, anger doesn't make us feel the most comfortable. It's uncomfortable, but there's no such thing as a bad emotion.
Right. It's how you express it, right? Yeah. You can have any emotion is okay. There's certain behavior that's not okay, right? Like, you can't hit when you're mad, but you can feel angry, and it makes sense to feel angry. And that's one of the things like that I think is so incredible to do for ourselves, is that because just the way that we model it for our toddlers, right? We say, oh, I understand that you're going through this. You're feeling angry. It makes perfect sense to me that you'd be feeling angry. You wanted that toy. You didn't want to share that toy, right? You really wanted to play with it. And that person's playing with it now. And that makes you angry. That's okay. Right? To do that for ourselves too. Like, oh, Jena, I get it. I get it. You're feeling sad today. And that's okay, right? You've had a rough few days. You've really been dealing with a lot. It's okay to feel sad. Like to talk to ourselves in that way, like we do our kids. I find it so refreshing. I'm like, oh, it's okay for me to feel sad. Like, thanks, Jena.
It's like the best friend in the mirror, right? We would say all these positive things to our best friends or to our friends. So why not to ourselves? Because at the end of the day, we're all we have, right? I mean, we're our biggest cheerleader. We're also our biggest critic. So you're right. You have to do that for yourself too.
Yeah.
Absolutely. I 100% agree. Yeah.
Self-talk is like my go-to. That's actually yeah, that's actually what's kind of helped me through all this, right? This postpartum stuff. It's just talking to myself really nicely and really gently. And sometimes I forget, and that's okay. And then when I get back to it, I'm like, oh, that feels good. Like it feels so good to just give myself a break by saying to myself, you're doing good, Jena. Like you're okay. Yeah. Like you're doing good.
And it's funny to be able to talk about talking to ourselves, because obviously the first thing people think about is you're talking to yourself, and when I talk about, again, as well, the importance of talking to yourself and being kind with yourself, and I always get the reaction, you talk to yourself? I'm like, you don't?
I know, it's weird. I thought everyone did.
I was like, I talk to myself. I'm hilarious. I love talking to myself. I'm the funniest person I know, and it's about being able to take the load off yourself when you're sharing it. Even if you're sharing it with yourself, it's that second, we're able to rationalize a little more if we're talking out loud or talking in the mirror. Right?
Yeah, that's so true. And I think that sometimes people don't realize that script that's always running in your head, like that's self-talk, right? That script that's like maybe complaining sometimes or feeling angry, like that's you talking to yourself. You're telling yourself all those things. You're telling yourself stories about how you feel about certain things. You're making up what it means, like what does the situation mean? It's kind of like when you say, you could see some guy cut you off on the highway and think, oh, like what an a-hole or something. Or you could think, oh, he must be in a real rush, right? And so you have two different reactions based on that, but that's all self-talk.
Absolutely. And a lot of people forget we all have a negative voice, right? That inner mean girl or that inner mean boy, that it's designed to protect us. Unfortunately, it's designed to protect us because we don't like doing things that are uncomfortable or scary. So that inner mean voice is there to protect you, but you need to learn to quiet it or when to quiet it, because that's what holds us back, right? You're not a good enough parent. You're not good enough at this. You're dealing with anxiety. Like, how can you be a good mother? You're not going to. And we need to say to that inner mean voice, I hear you. I recognize that you're speaking, but I'm choosing not to listen to you. I hear you, because the more you try to quiet it, the more louder it's going to get. But I'm choosing not to indulge because I know that what I'm doing is for the best for my children, or the best for myself, and that's okay.
Yeah. So you have those two voices, right? And that's kind of what I wanted to draw attention to, because when we talk about quieting that voice, I've always found that concept to be so difficult, because I've always been like, I don't know how to quiet it. So what I do is it's like I insert another voice, like that other voice, I just make it louder. I'm kind of like, I kind of say more positive things with that other voice. And I tell myself it's okay to listen to that other voice. And I kind of bombard myself with like positive messages. This is going to sound so weird, but I actually have recorded things that I want to remind myself, like I want my script in my brain to be a certain way. I want to be thinking positive thoughts. I want to be thinking nice things about myself. I want to be thinking the best about other people. I want to be appreciating the things that I have in my life. And it doesn't come naturally to me, right? Because of that inner voice. So I have actually recorded myself saying some of the things that I really want to remember. And I listen to it like before I go to bed and when I wake up, and sometimes when I'm driving. And, along with all the other positive messages that I listen to, like YouTube videos and things like that, but I'm always trying to kind of insert into my brain these different messages that I didn't necessarily grow up thinking, right? Messages that are not necessarily natural to me. And it's gotten so much easier over time, right? To even stuff like Sasha's safe, Sasha's okay, my daughter, she's going to be fine. She's going to live a long, healthy life. she's prepared, she's secure, like things like that to kind of ease my anxiety too.
And you know, we do that with my daughter Amaya. So she has a mantra that she has to say every night before bed and every morning when she wakes up. And it's a very simple one. You know, I am smart, I'm strong, I'm brave, I'm honest, I'm kind, and I'm so loved, right? And she says that every day before bed in the morning. And I actually have it written on my mirror as well, because I say the same thing. So even on the days where my anxiety is like, no, you're not, no, you're not this, no, you're not that. I always say to myself, you know, you're kind, you're compassionate, you're a good parent, you're beautiful inside and out. And I remind myself of those things so that the voice, whenever that voice comes out, that other voice, like you said, is like, oh, but wait a minute. Remember, every night and every morning we say these things, so it has to be true.
Yeah.
Right? And it's nice to instill those in our children when they're young, because even on the days when we're not an optimal parent, even on the days when we've lost our temper to our kids and when we just can't deal with them, and they go to bed maybe feeling like today wasn't a good day with mommy, or today wasn't a good day with daddy. Oh, but remember my mantra that I said before bed, I am so, so, so loved. So no matter what, she's always going to recognize that we're all going to have good days and bad days, but at the end of the day, you are so loved. And that doesn't go away. Just a bad day, that doesn't go away. Right. And that helps them with, you know, we put in the I am brave and all that for her anxieties as well, but also for mine, right? To be brave that she's going to be okay. Right. It's okay to quiet the anxiety a little. And, you know, my son's only 1, so we haven't started that with him yet. We do say that to him before bed, as we did with her from the day she was born. And then as he gets to the point where he's able to talk, then we'll get him to say it as well. But, you know, it's something that if we can instill in our children younger, we're giving them the tools to combat the anxieties that are likely going to happen. I mean, as much as we like to admit it or not, we're raising children in a pandemic. We're also raising children in a new age where anxiety is as prominent as breathing nowadays, right? So we have to give them the tools to manage that.
And you know, I just love everything you're saying. And I'm actually I'm gonna create a mantra for Sasha, because I haven't been doing that. I tell her things all the time, but I haven't been giving her like a succinct, like stable mantra that she can use. So I'm totally gonna use that. That's brilliant. I love it. I lost what I was gonna say. Yeah, no, I'm just thinking about my mantra now. That's so amazing. Oh no, I was gonna say that I think the fact that we are parenting with our anxiety or depression or whatever it is, it's actually, if we do the work ourselves, you're so right. It's going to give our kids the tools that they need, because parents who haven't had to deal with this type of stuff, parents who don't understand the depression and the anxiety that can crop up, aren't giving their kids the same tools, right? Because they haven't lived it. And so you could actually think, you know, because all of us moms, like with mom guilt, we can actually start to say, hey, this could be a really good thing for our kids. This could actually show them it's okay not to be perfect. And this is what you can do about it, right? This is like, you're never going to be perfect, but this is what you can do. You can be nice to yourself anyway. You know, you can treat yourself kindly. You can treat others kindly. It's kind of giving them this like amazing foundation from which to launch.
You know, I tell a lot of people that being diagnosed with postpartum anxiety was actually one of the best things that's ever happened to me, because it forced me to grow as a person in ways that I never thought possible, you know, and it forced me to look at things differently in the world and with a lot more gratitude. Like, I've never had anxiety before. So now to have almost a daily dose of anxiety, it's taught me to be grateful for the small moments where it's not there. Or it's even taught me to be grateful for what I'm able to teach my daughter and eventually my son. You know, and they've taught me so much as well. I remember when, you know, like I said, with my anxiety transpiring onto my daughter, I taught her a little mantra for when she's feeling scared. And, you know, you press your heart and say, brave, brave, time to come out. I need your help, so help me out. And so now I find myself doing that, right? So whenever I'm in a moment where I'm just like, I'm feeling a lot of anxiety, brave, brave, time to come out. I need your help, so help me out. It's, you know, that has been helpful for both of us. And so had it not been for the postpartum anxiety, had it not been for the second dose of anxiety with my son, I don't think I would have recognized or grown as much as I have now, and also been able to help others the way I am now.
That's so beautiful. Yeah, they do teach us so much. Like, becoming a parent, you just have to confront all of this stuff, all of the voices, all of the insecurities. It's kind of like Dr. Shafali's like conscious parenting, right? When she talks a lot about recognizing your own ego. Like we don't want to, just like what we've been talking about, we don't want to transfer our own egos onto our kids, but we do want to transfer the tools that we've learned, right? And I imagine like if I had some of these tools growing up, it would have been a lot easier for me to kind of just to know that I could talk to myself nicely, just to know that like that was something that I could do. And it's not, you know, like no fault of my parents, right? Our parents didn't have this knowledge. They didn't grow up in the same culture that we grew up in.
Yeah.
You know, they were so brave. Like my mom was 17, came to Canada on her own, you know, and then had 4 kids by the time she was 30. I'm like, I have 1 kid at 35 and that's a lot.
Yeah.
That's a bit much.
A whole other set of challenges that I think when it comes down to the emotional regulation, it wasn't a thing back then, right? It was, we don't talk about emotions, that's the way it is. And so for us growing up in an age where now emotional regulation is the new it thing, it's a lot of pressure, right? We're not raising physically strong kids anymore, you know, kids that are climbing trees and skinning knees. We have to raise emotionally strong kids.
So,
right?
so,
Especially because we're not emotionally strong yet either. We're getting there. Every day is a work in progress. It doesn't end. But it's such a challenge when you're also feeling at your emotional weakest to try to keep your kids emotionally strong.
Absolutely. So how do you do that? How do you like when?
I don't know. That's like the $1 million question, right? It's I chuck it down to patience and recognizing that you're kind of in this ride and it's okay to hold on tight and it's okay to let go. So when I'm feeling the moments where my anxiety is out of control, I just recognize it for what it is and say, today the anxiety is out of control. I'm going to try my best. But if it doesn't work, if I can't get through it, then I'm going to let my husband be the primary parent today. And I'm going to have to take a back seat and just be okay with it.
Absolutely. Yeah.
And the biggest thing too is you have to work as a team, especially, I mean, parenting in general should always be a team. And you know, I've thought of this even when I was pregnant with my daughter. Anything I can do as a parent, my husband can do. Besides breastfeeding, anything I can do, you can do.
Yeah.
But even more so with a mental health condition or a mental health strength, I would say, or team parenting is the biggest asset, right? You have to know that it's okay to step back and let them be, you know, alpha parent today, and that's the way it is. And when you're feeling emotionally strong, you'll be alpha parent, and that's fine too, right? But it doesn't work without teamwork.
And that balance that we're talking about, right? Because both parents, like, you know, same sex or different sex, we have this balance. It can sometimes start to feel really one-sided, right? Like especially if you're going through a mental health strength, right? If you have a mental health strength, sometimes your anxiety can manifest in you not letting your kid go to your partner. It can manifest, like that's what happened to me on the days, you know, actually, I think about maybe a year, for the first year of my daughter's life, I really didn't let her go. I didn't let my husband do the stuff that he needed to do with her. And as a result, she's very clingy with me because I was her sole kind of caregiver. Like I was her sole like emotional regulator. I was her sole everything. And so learning to kind of let go as early as possible is so incredibly important. And now that I know what I was dealing with, there are days when he has to take control, and that has to be okay, right? And she learns so much more from those days. Like she already knows me. She learns so much more from those days when she gets to just be with him.
You know, and parents who are single parenting, it's important to just have a small tribe if you can, right? Just somebody you can lean on to say, hey, today's, you know, my anxiety decided to pop its head today. It's a little bit high, or depression, or you know, whatever mental health strength you're dealing with is here. I need to take a step back, and that's fine as well. You know, you're right. It's a point where you have to say they're gonna learn a lot from my mental health condition, and they're also gonna learn a lot from my partner.
Yes.
Being the alpha parent, you know, your children should be able to rely on both equally. They may act different, right? But we also as moms have to take a step back. I remember when, you know, my husband's sister was getting married, he went for the bachelor party, and I stayed home with my daughter because I didn't have my son at the time. I wasn't pregnant then, but it was just me and my daughter, and we stayed home together alone for a weekend, and it was fine. But when I went for her bachelorette party, I was like, "You should go to Calgary and stay with your mom while I go on this trip." Right? And he was like, "Okay," because I needed that other person there. I don't think I needed that other. I don't think his mom needed to be there. I mean, she's phenomenal. I think he could do it on his own. I wasn't ready for that. Okay? So, and it's funny because we were talking about the pandemic, and I was like, "Okay, so if by chance one of us gets COVID, because I'm an epic, like I have to plan, I will then, if I get COVID, you isolate to the room and I'll look after the kids on my own. It'll be fine. But if I get COVID, then I will isolate to the room. I need you to maybe go to your parents' house or go to somebody else's house, like maybe my parents, and they can help out with the kids." And then I had to take a step back and be like, "You can parent just as well as I can. It's okay to let go."
It's okay to let go. Yeah. Yeah. And that's learning that I think for a lot of us just takes time, and it takes doing, right? It takes doing. It takes like shoving your kid at your partner and being like, "I'm off."
You might be in your room at that point in tears. Like, one of my anxiety things is this. You might be in tears, shaking. Yeah. But the important part is just let go and see what happens, right? If your kid cries, don't react right away. Don't go out right away. Just wait and see what happens. Even if they fall down, wait and see what happens. And I find I'm doing that a lot more with my son than I did with my daughter. Whereas my son right now, he'll fall and I'll wait a few minutes, and he'll cry and I'll wait a couple seconds. Like, "Yeah, you're okay. Just, what are you going to do? Get back up. What are you going to do?" Because in my mind, if I keep going, "Oh no, he's going to get the same anxieties that my daughter now has," because I did that with her when she was.
Yep.
It's a learning, but it's an everyday. It's an everyday. We're you and I are going to have this for the rest of our lives. It's not going to go anywhere. It's not going to just disappear overnight. We're going to have it. Our kids will be grown, married, and living on their own, and we're still going to be worried about that.
Totally.
And I think the more we're able to live with this and find tools to help us, the better it is for our own mental health going forward, because it's not going to go away. So might as well learn to live with it properly.
Absolutely. Well, I actually was talking to my mom yesterday, and I asked her, I'm like, did you ever worry about us? She's like, "Are you kidding?" She said, even to this day, she has 4 kids, 4 grandkids. She's like, "Even to this day, when you leave to go home, I'm worried about you getting home." She goes, "When I hear an ambulance, I'm praying to God that it is not one of you guys." She said, I still worry. She said, "It's never going to go away." And I was like, "Oh God." Like, I was kind of hoping for some "Oh yeah, in 3 years, you'll be fine." But no, it's just something we have to live with. And trust is I think the thing that kind of, for me, that's the only thing that I've been able to lean on, is having a concept in my mind of what do I think is actually going on here? I think that my daughter is here because she wants to be here. I think she's here for a reason. And I have to tell myself that she's being looked after by her inner being, right? By her soul. There's something looking after her, just like there's something looking after me. And I tell myself, my soul and her soul are both looking after her. So she's extra protected, she's here for a reason. And I have to tell myself that.
Yeah. You're right. It's that inner dialogue. I have to keep telling myself, right? And in our profession, you and I, we've heard the worst of the worst, unfortunately. I'm sure I know a few people who have lost their children at different stages in life, and so that's always going to be in the back of your mind. But it's if you continue to dwell on that and make that the forefront, you're going to miss out on so many opportunities with your kids. So sometimes allow that part to flip at the back and just say, it's there. That worry is always going to be there, but I can't let it push too far forward, or I'm going to miss out on their life right now.
Exactly. Yeah. Yeah. It's in mindfulness. That's so important, right? Being in the present moment with our kids, and just being able to enjoy them, where they're at, because that anxiety, that can really take over. That can ruin days, and I did want to touch on Pmdd because it's not really talked about. And I, as a counselor, I didn't even know it existed, right? I had kind of heard about it, but I didn't really pay much attention to it, because when people talk about disorder, mental health conditions that have to do with PMS, we have this sort of like, oh, it's just PMS. Like, oh, you had some bad days. Okay, well, you know, it's just one of those things. It's that time of the month. No big deal, right?
Sorry. He said, I hate hearing that.
Yeah. Or is this because you're a PMS, right? Like, oh, especially like with my husband, I'm like, I'll get mad at him for something. He's like, are you PMSing? I'm like, no, I'm not PMSing. Like, you're just, you're not doing things right. So it's not PMS, it's you. Oftentimes it is PMS because he's actually really great. And I don't really usually question him unless I'm PMSing. But I wanted to talk about this condition because it can crop up at any point in your life, in your kind of menstruating life. And it tends to get worse in your 30s. And so a lot of women that are around 35 might notice that suddenly their PMS has become, it's gotten to the point where they might try to divorce their spouse. They might try to like let go of you know, lifelong friendships. They might quit their jobs. They might make these really rash decisions at this point in your life. So essentially what happens is for 7 to 10 days before your period, and then up to a week after it started, you have this feeling like hopelessness, helplessness, like your life is kind of crashing down around you. You can get enraged by things. You can become incredibly irritable. And then you also might have some physical symptoms like soreness, sore breasts, or cramping and things like that. But essentially it's a debilitating mental health disorder. Like it really creates a lot of turbulence in your life and in the lives of the people around you. And so if for anyone watching, if you found that after you've had your baby, if you've gone through a little postpartum anxiety or postpartum depression, you're actually more susceptible to developing PMDD. So it's important to know about it. It affects between 3 and 8% of women. And if you recognize these, like what I'm talking about kind of resonates with you, where, oh, sometimes like for a few days, I just feel completely depressed, completely hopeless, suicidal even. Like there's so many, I think about 15% of women with PMDD attempt suicide when they're in that phase, right? If that sounds like you, I just want you to know that you're not alone and that there's things that you can do. You can reach out to me. I'm actually going to start some kind of a support group in the new year for it because it's really like a free support group because it's so traumatic. And there's also dietary and lifestyle changes that you can make. So for me, I cut out gluten and that really helped. Like I went from having probably 10 to 14 bad days a month to now like 1 to 3 just by cutting out gluten. Exercise really helps. There's a variety of things that can really help, but I just wanted to highlight that in this talk because it's one of those things that just like postpartum anxiety, we don't necessarily know a lot about it and people aren't necessarily talking about it. And so many women that have it don't know what they have. And they're too scared to seek help because they think maybe there's just something wrong with me. Like, what if they put me on medication? What if I'm not able to like be with my kid? Like you get all these thoughts, right? So it can be really scary to confront that. But knowing what it is will really help you to know how to move forward. So just like for you, when you were diagnosed with postpartum anxiety, how did that change things for you?
You know, the first thought was, I am going to be a failure of a parent, you know, and I felt that way. And that's kind of what stopped me initially from answering yes to the questions at my checkup, because I thought, if I answer yes, are they going to think that I'm an unfit parent? Right? And I know there's a lot more to it, but my first thought was, if I'm answering yes, that, you know, I'm not sleeping at night and I'm, you know, obsessed about my child, are they going to think I'm unfit? I'm unwell parent? Are they going to put me on medication? Are they going to be monitoring me as a parent? And you know, what does that mean for my child? And, you know, I just have to, even, you know, as you're explaining the PMDD, I just have to commend your strength. My goodness, that sounds so difficult to deal with, and especially if you don't get the help and support you need. Yeah. I can't imagine continuing to have to deal with that in silence. And I think it's very important for mothers out there to reach out and to access the supports, because PMDD sounds very, very debilitating.
It is. It is.
you know, and I know there's postpartum depressions where people aren't connecting with their babies, and that can be quite debilitating, and postpartum anxiety can get debilitating to a point. But it's more the mental exhaustion and the mental frustration, whereas PMDD, you're dealing with the mental and the physical, which is very difficult.
Mm-hmm.
So I hope that people will reach out for supports regardless of what they're facing. I think that every mom should have a tribe and should have a support group, um, because motherhood is not easy. Whether you're doing it without a mental health strength or with, it's not easy, right? Mom guilt affects everybody. So reaching out for supports and leaning on them when you need to, and not feeling guilty about leaning on them is very key.
Yeah. So Kia, do you have any recommendations or advice for people on how to create their tribe if they don't have a tribe? Like how do you go about building your tribe?
Yeah, so I was really lucky when I was pregnant with Amaya, my daughter. I joined Mommy Connections, and for the last 4 years, we've still been connected.
Wow, that's amazing.
They kind of know each other, but us moms, we get together once a month. Even during the pandemic, we got together over Zoom, and we're just there as a support. But even, so a support group like Mommy Connections, I never thought I would make mom friends from there, but I did. Um, and being able to be open enough to just talk, right? So go up to a mom, be like, how's it going? Or, just being open is what could help. Um, it's hard to make a tribe. You lose a lot of friends when you become a mom. I don't know if you found that, but I lost a lot of friends after I became a mom the first time, and even more after I became a mom the second time, especially with people who didn't have kids or their lives were just at different stages. You lose a lot of friends along the way. So reach out to mom groups in your community. Reach out to mom groups online that you can chat with. Even if it's one other person or two other people, find a connection, maybe in an outer circle that you can make. A play date, a play group. There's a lot of them on Facebook. There's a lot of them in your local communities. I know Edmonton has tons of different mom groups that get together. Going to play places when the pandemic is over and actually talking to another mom, and it can be really helpful. But that's how you slowly create your mom tribe.
Yeah. And when you're dealing with mental health strengths, one of the things that can be hard to do is to open up to other moms, because there's a fear of like, are you going to think I'm crazy? Are you going to think there's something wrong with me? Oh, you're not going through this as well? Oh, okay. But it's a numbers game, right? So I know that when I first had Sasha, the first 3 months, or 2 months, I don't think I really left the house. Like I was staying with my parents, and I wasn't really doing much. I was just trying to figure out how to do this whole mom thing. And then when I started leaving the house and going out to a bunch of different mom groups, and just like showing up with my daughter, just like showing up, it was hard. And there were times when like I left feeling deflated because I hadn't talked to anyone, and I was kind of like, oh, I really want to make new friends. I don't know how, but I just kept showing up and eventually made friends that way. But even just if you're struggling with like anxiety or depression or whatever, even just leaving the house, going for a walk, like right now with the pandemic, things look different. But if you just get outside, like that self-care aspect of it cannot be, I can't recommend it enough. Like self-care is everything. Even if you need to bring your child with you to feel safe, go out and do stuff. Like go to baby yoga classes, go to whatever you can, get outside in nature. That's the stuff, like every single day, that's what still lifts me up. If I'm having a bad day, I go outside with Sasha, we go for a walk, we grab a coffee, and I feel so much better, like just getting outside, right? So you'll find things that work for you. And when you find something that works, write it down and put it on your fridge or something. Like have a running list of things that work for you. Because when you're in that state of feeling low, you can't sometimes you won't be able to think of the things that you're supposed to do. But if you have a list right there on your fridge, you can just go to that list and be like, okay, call my mom. I can do that. That's an easy thing to do. And you try that. That doesn't work. Go for a coffee. I can do that. That's an easy thing to do. Do some yoga, whatever it is.
And you're right. You have to write it down because we're visual by nature, right? We always are. We're visual by nature. We have to see it. And usually when we're feeling like we need to isolate the most. So when our brain is like, oh, I don't want to see people, is actually your brain's way of saying you do need to see somebody. Like you need to get out. You need to, even if it's just to see a face across the street. But you'd be surprised how many kids are in your neighborhood when you go for a walk. I had no idea how many families were in this neighborhood until I started going out for walks.
Yes.
So get out there. Even if your brain is telling you don't, make a small goal. Say, you know what, I'm just going to walk to the mailbox and back and just get that air, right? One of my tricks for anxiety, especially panic attacks, when I was having a panic attack and I couldn't in the summertime, is I would open my freezer and I'd stick my head in and take a deep breath in, because that cold air would shock my system and be like, whoa, okay, we need to process this anxiety. What is happening, right? So get out for a walk, get that fresh air, get people, get to know people.
Yeah. And, you know, when you say that, it brings up an interesting point of when do you listen to that inner voice, right? That inner voice that tells you, oh, isolate, be by yourself, your kid's in danger, like that inner voice that kind of, and how do you know the difference between that voice and then the voice that you can kind of control, or the voice that you can kind of say nice things about yourself? Because there are two different voices. There are, right? It's not just me. There are two different voices.
Well, there's voices. There's lots of voices. There's lots of voices going on in there. I think you got to trust your intuition too, though, right? There's a voice in your head that'll say, don't go out, something's going to happen, you know, but then there's that gut feeling of, don't go out, something's going to happen.
Right.
You'll tell the difference, right? That voice might say, you know, if you're feeling depressed, right, just, don't go out, no one's going to talk to you anyways, or don't go out because, you know, it's not like you're going to make friends, you don't deserve to make friends, things like that. Or there's that feeling that you get when something is really wrong and you're just like, I don't know what it is, something doesn't feel right, I can feel it in my gut, I know something doesn't feel right. You know, yeah. We've all had it where, I don't know if this happened to you, but you know, sometimes in the middle of the night, if my kid, like if one of my kids is not feeling well, I just know. Like it's weird because, like, you know, kids will randomly cough throughout the night or sneeze. Sometimes you're just like, oh, I just know that doesn't sound right. Something is not right, right? Mm-hmm. So that trust that gut feeling, but also trust that gut feeling when it says to not go out versus to not go out, right? So I'll often ask myself, okay, is it my head talking or is it my gut talking? What's going on here? Right? And for the most part, it's like, no, that's my head. Yeah, that's just my head. That's just my anxiety saying, don't go out because, you know, what if something happens? And again, it's that what if, right? So my anxiety voice will say, what if this happens? What if that happens? But my gut feeling will say, something's going to happen. You kind of feel the difference. I don't know, personally speaking, that's just how
that's it is. Amazing. That takes a lot, and it takes a lot of self-awareness.
Oh gosh, so much. So much. It, you know, I've got stacks of journals of just writing, okay, I'm feeling this way, and you know, my mind keeps saying this, and you know, it's a lot of reflection as well, right? Yeah. Oftentimes, you can tell when it's your mental strength. At that point, your mental health, right? Like your mental illness thing, don't do this. Versus when you just know that maybe you shouldn't. And it's okay if you're feeling really depressed or your PMDD or your PPA and you're feeling that you just can't. You can take a day and not, right? That's self-care too. Taking a day and just not, it's self-care too.
Yeah, totally.
Recognize that you can't stay in that hole. So maybe you're going to isolate and stay in your room, but you're going to put on like the Backstreet Boys because that lifts you up. You know, maybe you're gonna play some good music, and so you're still gonna isolate, but you're gonna try to do those tools that you know are gonna help you.
Yeah.
There's not a lot of times you can feel like there's not a lot of times you can not dance to the Backstreet Boys or at least sing along.
Oh my gosh, yeah, Backstreet Boys or NSYNC. I like NSYNC too. Is that okay with you, Kia? Are you an NSYNC girl too, or is it just Backstreet Boys?
NSYNC. I am okay. Had a discussion when my husband and I had kids of, you know, Flames versus Oilers because he's a Flames fan. So I said, okay, I will be allowed for our family to be a Flames family, But if it comes down to Backstreet Boys over anything, we are the Backstreet Boys now.
Okay, you know what I'm going to do tonight? I'm going to put on some Backstreet Boys for Sasha and see how she likes it.
Amaya will come up to me and be like, who are the best singers? I'll be like, it's Backstreet Boys. She'll be like, yes, they are. I taught her so well.
This was so amazing, Kia. Thank you so much for chatting with me and sharing your experiences. Do you have, like, is there a way that women can contact you if they have questions?
You know what? You can add me on Instagram. It's Hot Mess Mom of Two, HAWT, Mess Mom of Two. Or I'm on Facebook. I'll put my name below, and you feel free to connect with me. I love talking to other mothers and helping them, especially through postpartum anxiety. I get it. I've been there. We're all in this together. And you know what? Us moms are one big tribe. So let's help each other out. So if you can't find your tribe, you got one here.
Amazing. You're the best. Thank you so much.